Hello, Dr. Brant Hulsebus here, and welcome to another edition of Ask the Chiropractor. Ask the Chiropractor is my little podcast that I do when someone has a question about chiropractic or chiropractic care. I try to answer. I'm a chiropractor here in Rockford, Illinois. I'm a proud graduate of Palmer College of Chiropractic, and I'm happy to be the team chiropractor of the Rockford Ice Hogs. Let's dive into it. Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is our little podcast when people have questions about chiropractic or chiropractic care, they ask us. And every once in a while, I get a week when nobody asks me a question. But they do, indirectly. They call my office, and my staff talks to them. And when they call in, they have a question they ask. So every once in a while, during a staff meeting, I'll ask my staff, is there a question that you've been asked a lot by people on the phone before they come in that could be answered only by a chiropractor? And they do ask a question quite commonly. They want to know about the adjustment that we're going to do as a chiropractor. There's a couple of things they want to know about the adjustment. The first question they'd like to ask a lot of times is it be a manual adjusting or will you be using an instrument? Meaning that a lot of chiropractors today have gone away from using their hands. Now I say go away from it because it started with the use of hands. Chiro means hands. So all chiropractors started by using their hands. When we go through technique school at Palmer College, we're taught by hand. We're not taught with instruments. I did not have a class at all where I was taught any instruments. Now, don't get me wrong, Palmer College does teach this, but they are called electives. They are classes I can take additional to my normal course load. So I can become a very good instrument adjuster at college. However, when I was a student, it was an elective. And the last time I checked, that was still true. Everything's still taught by hand. So what is the difference between being adjusted by your hands and being adjusted by an instrument? Inside of our joints, we have these things called mechanical receptors. They're little nerve endings that hang out, and they measure how the joint moves or how the joint doesn't move. Now remember, when you have a subluxation, that's when one or two bones are misaligned. And when this misalignment occurs, the body will lock it up and freeze it so it cannot injure itself more. But when this happens, there's also a stress response. And the stress response hits the nerves as they leave, and it'll change their autonomic tone. What the autonomic tone is basically fight or flight or everything's good. So when the bones are misaligned, they're stressed. That stress travels down the nerves and tells the body it alters the autonomic tone. So what does that have to do with the mechanical receptors? The mechanical receptors perceive this and they send a signal back and they let the body know that this isn't moving properly. Now what has to happen next is the joints above and below have to move extra and the whole spine itself has to adapt and change. As I've always said that your eyes are always on the horizon. That's called the righting reflex, like left and right, the righting reflex. And what happens is if I have a subluxation at my T7 and I deviate off one way, I have another one that appears to self-correct itself. Now that second one might not be fixated, but it's under more stress, and under more stress, the less it flows, the less it does its job. And again, the mechanical receptors are now altered at two places, if not more. So when I go in with my hands and I do a chiropractic adjustment, and I do the chiropractic thrust, when I do the adjustment, that's a massive stimulation in the mechanical receptors within that joint, telling that joint that we're here to free that joint up and make it move again. That whatever caused it to lock up in the first place, that stress is now gone. Let's restore the motion. Again, what happens when there's no motion in the joint? Your disc starts to dehydrate because when you have motion by the muscles around, they pump nutrients in and pull toxins out. So if the joint stays subluxated too long, degeneration can start to occur, starting with the dehydration of the disc. So as chiropractors, we go back and restore that motion. The moment we restore that motion, the body's signal alters and changes back to what they call proprioception, or growth or healing and repairing. Now when it's fixated, those signals don't exist, so we help to restore that. So when we go in there and we feel those spots with our hands, we feel them don't move, and we go in there and we do that with our hands, we know that we trigger that. Now there's instruments today that are proving they can do the same thing. They're proving they can go in there and stimulate the mechanical receptors to let go and release. Now, my personal experience is that I know it released when I do the adjustment because I can feel it give way. When I use an instrument to adjust, I don't always feel it. I'm not always as confident that it happened. However, the research is clear as day that it definitely happens. So it becomes a chiropractor's way of they prefer to practice. Now, what are some of the advantages of both? One, I know that when I do my adjustment that I definitely got that joint to move. How do I know? One, I feel the difference afterwards. I feel the difference during, meaning that when I go to thrust, I can actually feel it release under my fingertips. I can feel the muscle tone change. The longer I've practiced, the better I am at feeling that. And two, I can go back and do a post check and see now it's loose and now it's moving. With instrument adjusting, part of the positive of that is it doesn't matter which chiropractor. In my office, it's myself, Dr. Hayes, and Dr. Sam. If I'm not in, they see Dr. Hayes and they'll say, Dr. Hayes did a little bit different. And I said, was it good? Did you feel like you got the adjustment? Oh, he got the adjustment. It just felt different than when you do it. And that's just going to be natural because chiropractic is an art, science, and philosophy. And the art of practicing chiropractic is going to be very individual and very unique to those who do manual adjusting. Now, those who don't do manual adjusting, they use an instrument, the art is a little bit less there. The art of doing the adjustment doesn't quite exist at the high level as it does using manual adjustments. The science is there. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying anything negative on this, I'm just saying the science is still there. But if Dr. Sam or Dr. Hayes came in with an instrument to adjust you and I'm not there, it would feel the exact same because the instrument was different. Now, if they brought a different instrument in, it would feel different. But the factor there is the instrument, not so much. The chiropractor's job is to know how to apply the science and know the right angles and when and where to use the instrument. So don't get me wrong, there's still doctoring going on, but nevertheless, it's not the same as manual adjusting. It's the way it feels and the way it performs. Now, does one get you better, faster than others? I haven't seen the research paper that shows either way. So I'm not here to tell you this adjustment is better than that adjustment or that adjustment is better than this adjustment. The biggest thing you're going to learn is that it's going to feel the same no matter who does it versus manual adjustment is going to feel different. And I've been adjusted by instruments and I've been manual adjusted. When I get up for a manual adjustment, I feel tremendously different. I don't always feel that immediately with the instrument adjusting. But again, the more passive the technique, the longer it takes to kick in, baby. I've also had an in-between where the table moves up and down, so the chiropractor still uses manual adjusting, but now the table pops up and down, and I've gotten great results. I've gotten great results on all three types of adjustments. Myself, I practice the way Grandpa practiced, or practice the way Dad practiced, or I practice the same way. I use manual adjusting. In our office, the majority of what we do here is manual adjusting. Not to say that we wouldn't, but that's the majority of what we do. Just because that's where we wanted to get our skill set to the highest, is be able to do manual adjusting. But there's another one out there besides manual adjusting, instrument adjusting, and table assisted adjusting, and this chiropractors that don't adjust at all. We've got a lot of phone calls over the years that the chiropractor have to adjust me. Now, this part I don't fully understand. I don't fully grasp. Part of going through chiropractic school, you are taught some massage therapy. Strike that. You're taught physical therapy. We're taught how to do adjustments and then maybe complementary therapies that go with it. There's some chiropractors out there that have moved away from doing the chiropractic adjustment and are strictly doing physical therapy moves. As a chiropractor, I don't understand that because you can get that from a physical therapist. You don't need to get it from a chiropractor. The only difference is a lot of times with your insurance plans or maybe your state plans is that the chiropractor is a primary level entry doctor, meaning in some states and in some insurance plans you have to have a note from a primary before you can see a physical therapist, where you do not need that from a chiropractor. So I can go in and see a chiropractor and the chiropractor can perform physical therapy on me. We taught at Palmer College 6 or 7 adjusting classes and 1 physical therapy class. Physical therapists are taught tons and tons of physical therapy, so I'm more prone to go to a physical therapist personally than I am to see a chiropractor for physical therapy, and I speak from experience. I've had several injuries in my time, and I've worked with some really good physical therapists that I choose to over going to see a chiropractor. And that's my personal choice from my personal knowledge. But when I have a patient comes to see me, they said they've been to a chiropractor in the past, but they've never received a chiropractic adjustment. I don't know that they've really seen a chiropractor. They might be chiropractor in title, but if they're not actually analyzing the spine and checking for vertebral subluxations, they're not really doing what the bread and butter of chiropractic is. I would never go to a dentist who doesn't check my teeth for cavities. That's what dentists do. Even though they might be able to do all kinds of cool things for my TMJ muscles and other things, I think I want my dentist to still examine my teeth. I want to go to a podiatrist and they'll look at my feet. I don't know. I don't really understand this. So you might want to check out. There's different chiropractic schools. Some chiropractic schools do not put a lot of onus on the adjustment, and that's why I'm always pointing out that I'm a graduate of Palmer College, where we put a lot of onus on the chiropractic adjustment. We do a lot of other rehab and things that go with the adjustment, but the idea is that none of this stuff works as well until the adjustment's made. Meaning, if I have sciatica, my lower back's misaligned, you can do all the physical therapy on the world on me. If my sciatica is still out, it's not going to heal the same potential what if you corrected the subluxation first. Let me share with you one of my dad's analogies. If you have a garden and you have a garden hose going into the garden and somebody puts a big rock on the garden hose, i.e. a chiropractic subluxation, right? It's right on the garden hose. You could put fertilizer in that garden and you get a little bit of growth. You could add some more sunlight, you get a little bit more improvement. But until that rock's off that garden hose, that garden is never going to heal back to its fullest potential. Now, I like the idea of exercising and stretching and stuff after your adjustment, because if I remove that rock from that garden hose, now the water is flowing really good. Now, if I add the fertilizer and more sunshine and weed it and get rid of the other problems, now that garden's got the benefit of everything. It's really going to grow, but not until that rock's been removed from that garden hose. So a lot of times you come to see me as a new patient, people ask me for exercises and stretches immediately, and I won't give it to them not until after we know that they start to hold their adjustment. Then once we know they hold their adjustment, I would love to share with them exercises and stretches, because I know it's going to make the chiropractic adjustments work better, perform better, and hold longer, because we're only adding positive stuff in, no negative stuff. So there you have it. So if you want to see a chiropractor that doesn't adjust, I would call and ask for that. I'd maybe see the colleges they went to and see their train of thought. But if you want to see a chiropractor that uses their hands, I would just call and ask, does your chiropractor perform manual hands-on adjusting? And if you want to see a chiropractor that only uses instruments, I would just call and ask, does your chiropractor use hands-on or do they use instrument-assisted chiropractic care? And lastly, I briefly talked about the table-assisted. That's a little bit of that's more manual than I would say non-manual. But if I call them and say I'm looking for a manual adjuster, and they say, we definitely have one, then I would ask, was it table-assisted or does the chiropractor do the majority of the work? In my office, we do a lot of Thompson, we do a lot of Diversified, and we do a lot of Gonstead. And I say Thompson, we do a little bit of Thompson drops on the hips. So I do a little combination of table-assisted, and then mostly, I'd say 80% manual adjusting. And I do have a couple instruments that I use to adjust in the drawer when I get them out from time to time. So it all depends on what's going on. The biggest thing is we try to do here is do what's best for our patient. So if our patient requires something, we have the ability to change and adapt to them. There you have it. Today was a question submitted by my staff during a staff meeting about the most common questions we get when people call in. So I hope I answered that question good. Now, if you have a question about chiropractic or chiropractic care, feel free to leave a comment, message below, or call my staff and ask a question. And maybe next time you'll be the question of the week. Thanks for tuning in.